All right, here we go. Another Wednesday coming to you live from a windy press box at McConnell Family Stadium in Gannon because the weather tonight is not satisfactory, although the men's soccer team's still out practicing as we speak right now. So it can't be that bad if we're out practicing and doing all that fun stuff. But man, it's great to be back. Great to be with you all. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Gem City Sports Podcast, as always brought to you by our friends at Revich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. If you want more info on Revich, go to the website, www.revichinvestments.com, or you can go to their website and during normal business hours, give them a call at 814-734-3433, 814-734-3433. My goodness, now the rain's really coming down in buckets. Maybe you'll be able to hear it from my microphone as we go along throughout the night. Big show planned for you this evening, all high school football, of course. We came to you live on Friday for Rapid Reaction and talked about the chaos that was with the 4A championship game and the shock that so many had with Oil City beating General McLean. And now we add 4A, 6A into the mix with McDowell. And oh, by the way, the 3A semis are coming your way as well. So a lot going on, a lot to get to. No better person to bring in than Rob Matz tonight as we break this down. Rob, I got to admit, I'm a little surprised at the content that we have this evening because I thought we'd be talking about some other teams, some different scenarios, but here we are, and the playoffs have proven again that I really think that this has been the year of parity, and we've talked about it, maybe the last couple of years have, but we're really in a scenario I truly believe that is different than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, and you know, like in the McLean situation, it's tough to beat somebody twice. And you know, we've talked about it before. Come playoff time, you better be able to run the ball, you better be able to play defense, and you better have something built that you can withstand the weather and not turn over the ball as well.
Yeah. And we'll get to Oil City in just a couple of minutes. We really went in depth on that game on Rapid Reaction on Friday. By the way, all of our shows are streaming live and archived on our social media platforms. We're at Gem City SN up there, our social media platforms above your screen. And of course, we're live tonight on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts. We're live tonight on Twitch too. Let's start, though, with 3A here, Rob, because that was the part that kind of we got cut off with on Friday before they turned the lights out on us at Vets and at Edinburgh. I'm glad we both made it home safely and weren't locked out for an evening. You know, you and I got a lot of flack, maybe I think undeservedly so, for putting Fort LaBeouf in the 3 seed in 3A when we did our bracket predictions. But lo and behold, here we are. And LaBeouf and Northeast, 2 Erie County teams, are still alive in the 3A bracket. I want to start with the Great Pickers because they're the lower seed, but they're the great story. And you and I have talked so often about Chris Grahowski and what he's been able to do with that Picker program and the identity that they've had. To me, it's not a shock that they beat Grove City for a second time. They beat him in week 1. And really, I thought were even better last week than they were week 1. Did you anticipate that they would be this far in the postseason, Northeast? And what do you make of their win on Friday night?
It was a dominating win. Right after we talked, I came home and talked on the phone a little bit, and then I sat right in and I watched the replay of that game. And, you know, we talk about teams built for the playoffs. Well, Northeast defense is built for the playoffs. I mean, you know, Coach Grahowski, he likes to load the box. He likes to play man. He's going to be very aggressive. And offensively, I really think that they put together the best game they have all season when you look at everything they did. And they took risks too. Grove City, you know, there was that chance to beat them. And that's why, you know, we felt like, well, we were kind of shocked that they were in that 3 seed. And, you know, District 10 said they didn't put really much emphasis on this win or that win, but they put emphasis on them beating LaBeouf. They really must have thought that it was a fluke that Northeast beat them early in the season. And then they put so much emphasis on that they were playing well down the stretch, even though that they lost. I mean, a loss is a loss. You lost to Hickory, you lost to Sharon. Conneaut played them tough. So when you look at the way things hashed out, I'm glad for Northeast. And they really did it in dominating fashion. They had control of the field position all night long. They won the turnover battle. They took a big shot at midfield on a fake punt with Ethan Ringer that went 50 yards, which was awesome.
Right.
Bryson Galloway, I mean, he was really incredible. he played really well, and defensively they played well. And then you look at Colton Owens, another big game. He's got 131 tackles on the year.
It's amazing to me, Rob. I think when we look at the totality of Northeast and really of Region 5, because the story this year has been about the star players, the stud guys in Region 5. And we started with talking about Girard and their quarterback and how they were off to a good start. Then we morphed into Corey. Okay, do the Beavers have the team offensively like they did last year? And we kept Northeast was really the one team I think outside of LaBeouf, and LaBeouf we're going to get to in a bit, but they're different because of their consistency on the ground. But Northeast was that one team that we constantly talked about, and we didn't maybe make them the forefront every single week, but we said, okay, their offense is really good. Their offense continues to be good. Their offense is still blowing teams out. And you look at some of the scores in the regular season of how they were able to put up points offensively, and some could attribute it to the opponents that they play. They didn't play an amazing schedule. They're not going to play the schedule the likes of somebody in Mercer County or even what Fort LaBeouf played, but clearly the points they scored weren't a fluke. And this offense is being able to figure it out. And I think the thing for me with Northeast, Rob, and you and I have talked about this team doesn't know what they don't know. And as long as you play without that fear in the postseason, you always give yourself a shot to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, they were not a good team last year. They were building. They don't have a ton of depth. You talk to people that when they came out at camp, you talked to a lot of people in the area, and they felt that the same thing. Northeast had some good guys and some good players in key positions, but everybody said, well, they don't have a lot of depth. They felt that they were like Girard in that fact. But you're right. They did the right thing though with their schedule. They came out and they got the win. Grove City week 1, and they didn't play a really hard schedule. And then they had, big losses there to LaBeouf and to Corey. But the thing is that's how you build. And, those kids believe. And as they came around the second time, they believed. Coach McIntosh, I went to high school with them, their special teams guy. And, he was putting on their like revenge tour, all the way through from, games from last year to continuing on just to the playoffs. And I mean, you look at Bryson Galloway, he has 2,200 yards of offense. And I mean, everything runs through him as far as throwing the ball, running the ball. Ethan Ringer plays a key component. And then you have Carter Crozier, who's arguably one of the better all-around players in District 10. So, I mean, that was a huge win, knocking off a team from the South, which District 10 didn't believe could happen. And now they go into Sharon, who we saw Sharon earlier in the year. And you'll remember week 1, we were down there. Mercyhurst was inside, I believe, their 5-yard line. And then I believe they were inside the 20 another 2 or 3 times. They had their opportunities. And they did get some guys, behind the Sharon secondary as well. I don't know if I lost you there. So they, they were able to get guys behind the Sharon secondary. But then, you look at Sharon, and Lampkins is back. So who knows if he's going to play the quarterback position. Englemore is still there. He's had a solid year at about 1,000 yards. And then they have the burner in Terry and White, 1,153 yards in 9 games and 16 touchdowns. Bishop Root, your guy's back, 259 rushing rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. And then he's a threat in the pass game along with Norris and Hughes. And then you have Stone Root on the offensive and defensive line as well. And not sure if I lost you with the wind and the rain. Oh, okay.
All right there, Rob. Am I back?
You're back. I mean, I just continued to talk, so I was a little thrown off.
You were
But
con- you were controlling the show. We just had the power go out at McConnell Family Stadium for a moment in the press box, so I'm now working on Wi-Fi off my phone. But that's live TV. I feel like every time I feel like I get away from TV, something else happens to go.
better you than me in that press box, as I'm sure it's probably swaying around up there.
Yeah, well, you were talking just before we just got done with Northeast. Obviously, we'll talk about the matchup in a second. Robin, I
Yes.
know you just kind of went through it, but let's flip the script and talk Fort LaBeouf for a bit.
Okay.
I think we kind of expected that LaBeouf would be here. The Corey game, I think, to me, really solidifies the Bison as the region champs that they were, right? And I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind that they were the strongest Erie County team of that field, with respect to Northeast, who is still through. And I think for the Bison, we'll get, like I said, we'll get to the matchup in a minute, but for me, again, it's an impressive feat because of just how consistent that they are, and consistent they were on Friday night as well.
Yeah, and the way that they did it, we talked about it Friday night. Corey came out and threw a little hiccup here as far as going double tight and things like that. But Brady Black, I mean, he had a night, as well as Skylar Sadowski. Those two defensive ends were just all over the field. Um, Carson Stoles, Ethan Horn, those linemen were nasty on the offensive and defensive line. And then you look at Dominic Walters, 1,700 total yards, 18 touchdowns on the season between passing and rushing. And Skylar Sadowski, I mean, he's a man. 1,422 yards, 17 touchdowns. And then you're getting Brady Black in the run game now, Strushin in the run game. You have Amaro, you have a downfield threat, and then they have that secret weapon in the kicker and Lucas Cantz. But they really were dominant, especially after halftime.
Funny thing about, I think, this Bison team, and it's not funny, it's the truth, and I think it's really fascinating in my book, is the fact that this is a team that is built to win for a very long time. Now, we know what Coach Blows has been able to do, and they don't have just one guy, right? They have multiple guys who can run the football. And I think when you have that kind of personnel, Rob, at least in my book, that you can go 2, 3, 4 RBs deep, that's going to help you tremendously in a lot of ways. And whether or not they can beat Hickory this upcoming Friday, who knows? But this team is always going to be in the conversation for a region championship. And now what we've seen in 3A the last couple of years is that they are the team in Erie County that is going to get one of those top seeds, whether they're 3, whether they're 4. It's essentially Mercer County and then Fort LaBeouf and then everybody else.
Yeah, and we called it. They should have been the 3 seed without a doubt. But bygones be bygones here. And they are built. This junior class is absolutely incredible with what they have. And they bring back all their offensive linemen next year. All 5 are coming back, plus a couple of the backups. And, and also what they're doing, and we talked about it, is playing like 3 freshmen in the secondary, a sophomore at outside linebacker. They bring in another sophomore that started a few games and plays a ton at linebacker. That front group there, as Coach talked about, Coach Blows, they're taking care of the entire defense, and those guys are putting in extra work on top of what the coaches are asking them to do, taking care of all these underclassmen.
So I'm excited about Friday. I think it's going to be exciting to see how these two teams come out. Clearly, Sharon Hickory are still going to be the favorites. It's Hickory, LaBeouf at Slippery Rock at 7 o'clock on Friday. And then General McLean hosting a playoff game, just not the one that they would hope to have hosted. They're going to be the host site for Sharon Northeast Friday night at 7. Rob, is there any scenario that you see that one of these two Erie County teams could knock off a LaBeouf, knock off a Hickory or knock off a Sharon in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, let's start with LaBeouf. They've done a great job defensively. I mean, they need to handle Christian Dungy at quarterback. I watched them. Their only loss was to Canfield, Ohio, which is a really tough place to play. But Dungy is fast. I mean, he can do things that are crazy. They did lose their wide receiver Phillips for the year, but Kelvin Morrison, he's only played 9 games, 1,422 yards and 16 touchdowns. And then, Trevor Boritz, he's awesome. But this is what when you look at LaBeouf in this game, I don't know how much they're going to be able to get to the edges. They like to run buck sweep. I don't know. But the way that line played last week, if that offensive line can have a big game and they can chunk up yards and control the clock, Dominic Walters is also an equalizer running the ball as well. And they have the kicking game. They both these teams probably need to hope for some really inclement weather. But everything's going to have to go right for him. But no, I could definitely see LaBeouf getting by. It's going to be tough. They haven't played the schedule that Hickory has. And then Northeast, Bryson Galloway is going to continue to have a really big game.
Yeah.
And it runs through him. And then defensively, they can't give up the big explosive pass plays or run plays to Terry and White because they're going to load the box. And, there's the potential right there. So, no, I feel this is our best shot up here that we've had in a long time. But things are going to have to go right. That's for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned the weather. I think that's a big part. I think the advantage that Northeast Sharon for me is the most intriguing game, only because I think Northeast.
I agree.
While they don't, I think Sharon has the more talent on the offensive side of the football, but I think Northeast of the two teams in Erie County is the one team that can put up points more so than LaBeouf. Not that LaBeouf can't, but Northeast can score in bunches. They take more risk, and I think they're better at taking risks than what you would expect with LaBeouf, which is that consistent sort of a team that is going to have to do that against Hickory. So I'm fascinated. I really hope for the sake of Erie County that we see close games on Friday night. I think that would be a very exciting evening. And maybe the weather's an issue. I mean, if it's anything like tonight, it's going to be crazy for these teams to try to throw the football. It's going to be a lot of ground and pound. That favors LaBeouf for sure, and it probably favors Northeast too, as long as they can stop Terry and White. So big games Friday. 3A is going to be a lot of fun, Rob. It's good to see two Erie County teams in the semis, and we'll see if either or both can make the final.
Wouldn't that be great?
It would be awesome.
Great? Oh my goodness. If both of them made it, that'd be incredible.
I think it'd be the story of the year, and that's no disrespect to the team that we're going to talk about in a little bit from now and finish up with Oil City, but that would be the story of the year if you could get Sharon, if you can get Northeast and Fort LaBeouf into the title game, beating Sharon and Hickory, the presumptive favorites in 3A. All right, speaking of presumptive favorites, let's go ahead and move along to 2A here, Rob, and just preview this title game. You were there on the call for what was a crazy Mercyhurst Prep Seneca game. Would have been the game of the week if not for GM Oil City. And the Lakers, they flipped the script from last year, and I thought that was really important for Coach Jeff Root and the Lakers. Last year, of course, we know semis against Sharpsville. They're the 2 seed. They blow a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, and they lose. This year, they have a double-digit deficit the second half, and they win. And Farrell just keeps rolling along. It's funny. You looked at Farrell at the beginning of the year, and you thought, well, are they really going to be what they could be, right? They lost to Hickory in a game that maybe they should have, could have won. Steubenville's a tough opponent, but they're 9-2 and they're rolling. Your thoughts first and foremost on this game, Rob, one that will be a rematch from a couple of years back. And a game, remember, in that D10 championship game, I think it was in 23, that Mercyhurst Prep gave Farrell a run for their money. It was a one-score game late in the fourth quarter. Just your initial thoughts on how this game could go.
This is a different Farrell team than some other teams. I mean, I've watched a lot of them, and when you look at their schedule, like you said, that 1-point loss to Hickory, Sharon, Fort LaBeouf, at Steubenville, they played prep, not to mention some other tough opponents in there as well. And to be able to come out 8-2 is absolutely incredible. And then I watched that Eisenhower film about three times. Now, the problem is Farrell's so explosive, and Pegues is unbelievable running the ball. He's unbelievable throwing the ball. But then Jules Johnson, he's every bit of a back that Vinny Feliciano is. They're just a little bit different. I'll tell you what, Jules Johnson is physical, and he does some crazy things. 1,541 yards, 22 touchdowns. He's averaging 11.2 yards a carry. Then they've got some other guys that fill in here and there. But then Jaden King Vincent to be eligible for the playoffs was huge. But here's the thing. 2 out of the first three possessions with Eisenhower, Farrell scored. Eisenhower got down to the 1-yard line and fumbled. the next possession, I think they had a punt, and then they got down to the 8-yard line and stalled out. The thing for, and we saw Jacob Zach. He's a very good quarterback, and they do some things that cause a big problem for you with the option game and things like that. The thing is, Mercyhurst is going to be able to have to, one, run north and south. The offensive line has to come to play. They have to have the best game that they have ever played. Okay. And they've got to control the clock, and they've just got to finish drives. They can't settle for field goals or field goal attempts or anything like that. They need to finish drives, and they need to score. And Tyler Quinn's going to have a big game along with Vinny Feliciano.
Yeah.
And there's going to be times that Everett Cotterill is going to have to be able to, push the ball downfield. And they haven't been able to really have a passing game this year. They had a big play last week, but that's far and few in between. But the problem with playing Farrell is, you could have a big play, you could get down there and score, and they might put three touchdowns on you in a matter of, a minute. They're a very, very scary team. And the way they fly around on defense, they look to lay the lumber every single play.
I'm glad you brought his name up, because to me, the X factor in the game is Tyler Quinn. I don't think it's Vinny Feliciano for Mercyhurst Prep, and not with his pass catching or his running skills, but his blocking skills. You mentioned going north-south, right? We've seen so many times Tyler Quinn, they line him up in the backfield to whatever side that Vinny's not on. You have a 2-back set, and you run that buck sweep, you run power, whatever it is, inside zone, and you have Tyler be the lead blocker. He has to be the guy that opens up holes for Vinny. And it doesn't have to be 10-yard holes, right? If you can get Vinny 5-6 yards of carry, and your Mercyhurst Prep, you're a team that typically likes to run quick against opponents. Now you're going to be the team that's going to need to grind some clock. You can pick up 5-6 yards of carry, and you muddy the waters. You make it a 14-14 game at the half, then you give yourself a shot. For me, what's going to be fascinating is that passing game, inevitably when Cotterill has to throw. You wonder if they don't feel confident in the downfield passing attack, whether it's the elements, whether it's the Farrell secondary, is how can you get guys open and scheme them open with quick passes that result in yak? Vinny's a guy who can do that. We've seen JT Jones at times be able to do that. Tyler Quinn, maybe as a tight end position, could do that. But you have to scheme them up. And I think, like, to your point, the problem that Farrell presents is they're so athletic. So even if you can get a guy open for a second or two, you're going to have two guys that are bearing down on him pretty quickly. And that, to me, is the big question is Mercyhurst Prep capable of being able to make that happen where they can get guys open for more than a second or two? And I think that's where the lumber lies, as you mentioned, for the offense.
Yeah, and I think the big X factor, and I know Braden and myself have been very surprised because Coach Root put Vinny at quarterback during the Corey game, and Vinny has a cannon. But where he really caused a problem for Corey, they called one play, misdirection play, and out of the 4 times they called it, Vinny scored 3 times. 2 of them he went untouched for long touchdowns.
Yeah,
hasn't really, been involved in that sense. And we were really surprised because we felt like this was the game, that you might need to lean on him heavy. But it's tough to be able to, not get the reps, and then all of a sudden in certain situations, okay, now throw him back there. But yeah, it's going to be really tough. I mean, Farrell is, they're going to get in your face, they're going to press you, they're just going to be mean and nasty, and it's going to be really tough. So I really think it's a grinded out game. And you look at that line with Hinterleiter and Sermonera and Lockett, those guys have to come to play. And then, they need a role player too. Ian Elman Sparks, Darius Bridget. Somebody is going to need to step up as well. But the scary part is when Mercyhurst is on defense, because, we've seen a lot of teams move the ball against them, and they have not seen the likes of Farrell yet. The defense hasn't. And, they saw Sharon week 1, but Farrell's not Sharon. Farrell's, they thumped Sharon. They're taking it up another notch. And I think what really impresses me about the Steelers, the schedule that they played, they don't flinch. I mean, they don't flinch at all. So, we talked about it. This is a David versus Goliath matchup. Not that it can't be done, but talked about it the last time they played Farrell down, I believe. No, that was at Meadville about 3 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah. And the only way really to be able to beat them is to be able to run off tackle, to be able to run up inside. Maybe Vinny can get some yardage on the outside. We'll see, but really haven't seen too many teams do it. So it is a big task, but I'm putting it all on that offensive line and then Vinny and Tyler Quinn.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's fascinating with Mercyhurst Prep because we know what Vinny's capable of. We know that offense has a lot of weapons, yet you look at their schedule, they've only scored 40 points or more twice this season. And the number, I think, to beat Farrell has to be at least 40.
Yes.
50 may not be enough. I mean, if you're going to want to run them in a track meet, you're going to have to score a minimum 40 points. And so I think the muddy the waters approach to me is what I would go for Mercyhurst Prep. That doesn't mean that you're going to try to get 2 yards in a cloud of dust. It just means that be okay with taking 3 or 4 yards a carry. And if you're Vinny, that's okay. Like 17 play drives isn't the end of the world. So big game that's coming up, 2A championship game. That's going to be at Titusville High School on Saturday. Late start, 7:00. Beautiful facility, by the way. Titusville is one of my favorite stadiums to go to. I absolutely love watching games down there. Hey, we absolutely
have the biggest home field advantage. I'm sorry, they should have the biggest home field advantage. That place is it's daunting. It is a cool place.
It's beautiful. There's almost nothing like it in the area, whether it's Erie, Crawford, Mercer County. We love it there. We love Reputation Investments too, keeping financial guidance simple. They're the sponsor of our show and of our program on the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. More information, you can go to the www.reputationinvestments.com or call 814-734-3433 during normal business hours, 814-734-3433. Let's talk about another game that's coming up this weekend. We haven't talked about this team in a couple of weeks, partially because they did not play in the championship game. And of course, Erie finding out today that they're on probation for a year for dropping out of the 6A championship game, but we'll worry about that story a different day. Let's talk McDowell State College. This is seemingly the perennial matchup in the sub-regional for the last, fourth straight year now that they've played, at least the third straight year. Finally, we get to play a game at Gus Anderson Field, which is nice for McDowell. They've had to go there for the last 2 seasons. And Friday night, it's the D6 powerhouse that's coming in to the Gus. Let's talk about McDowell for a bit, Rob, and look at their season. I think we both agree this is a better team than what their records should suggest because they have by far played the most difficult schedule in District 10. It has been ridiculous, the teams that they've had to go through. Your assessment of McDowell as they get ready to play this, another tough one, maybe the toughest of the season against State College on Friday.
Yeah, and we've said it all along. They are much better than their record. And they did things, Deontay Fleming's at quarterback and, because of the injury to Kuhn. But now Kuhn's back and, he's been splitting some reps with Lucas Salt. And Kuhn's the real deal. And, we know what Brody Bonzell can do. I mean, he can turn it on pretty quick. McDowell's just going to have a huge game and not make mistakes. And they're just going to have to be able to, another one, grind it out. And they're going to have to really slow State College down. And, you look at State College, they have 2 losses on the season. They lost a couple weeks ago to McDevitt, which is an unbelievable program. And then their other loss was early in the season, and that was in double overtime to 10-0 Harrisburg, who's now 10-0. So they are a very, very good team. But, I'm not going to count McDowell out at all. Again, Who knows what the weather is going to bring? Kuhn's back. You're able to move Fleming's out at receiver now. Gives them some more options and weapons. And they do have a good running game. And for the schedule that they've played, I think they did a really good job. The big key is being able to slow State College down. Kalka, their quarterback, 1,848 yards, 25 touchdowns. Sheffy's like over 1,200 yards rushing, 17 touchdowns. And then you have Code and Lustig, and between the two of them, they're over 1,000 yards. So that's going to be the key. But, McDowell's going to definitely want to hope for some bad weather, and they just can't make mistakes.
Sheffy's been the guy that McDowell's had to deal with for a few years now. I feel like he's in his 11th year of high school.
Yeah.
He still continues to be a part of this program. It is wild to me. But, Rob, I'll say this about McDowell, and we've hit on this with their schedule, that their record is not indicative of how good of a team they are. We know Coach Orlando that if he gets the run game going downhill, that this becomes a different team, because Kuhn, who, whether he's there 100% of the time, whether it's Salt, whoever they put back there because of Kuhn coming back to full health, the second that you start running downhill with Boncel, the game changes, because then you limit possessions for State College. And I think we have talked about through this program tonight about 3 teams in Northeast, Fort LaBeouf, Mercyhurst Prep, that you try to muddy the waters and maybe it gets you a chance to win. But that still doesn't guarantee you victory. My opinion, as good as State College is, if McDowell can run the football downhill and Boncel plays a game like he did against Prep, like he did against Meadville, I think McDowell has a legitimate good shot to win this football game. And I don't think it's a knock on State College. Their defense has been tremendous, but you look at the way that State College's schedule has gone. In shootouts, in games where they struggle against the run, they become a little more mortal. And McDowell's strength, of course, is through the line. It's through Boncel. I think they have the blueprint to win the game, is what I'm saying. Do I think they should be the favorite? No. Do I think that ultimately are they going to have a tough time winning this game? Sure. But I do think the blueprint's there, and they followed it more so than maybe the other teams we've talked about on this show tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, they played very well. They played very well against St. Francis at the end of the season. And some of those other scores against those Ohio teams were very deceiving. McDowell was in those games. And they're another one, like Farrell, they went into the Lions' Den at Steubenville. And, it's at home. It's at Gus Anderson, which is huge, because that's not an easy ride going to State College or for State College to come up here at all. So, no, I agree with you. I think they have a shot, but they just have to be able to, move the ball. Definitely in the running game, and then Kuhn, when he's in there, and Salt, they need to add a spark, and then their defense really has to hold up, because they have given up a lot of points this year.
Yeah, I agree. And to me, it's the defense. I think the offense can score enough. It's just whether the defense can make a couple of stops, and it's hard when State College has the number of the depth, right? We talked about depth with Sharon, depth with Hickory, depth with Farrell, another team that comes in, they're just locked and loaded. You take Sheffy out of the game, they have 4 or 5 other guys that can hurt you, at least. And so that, to me, is the concern for McDowell. I think the offense is there. The defense is the big question mark. And if the game's played in the 20s or the 30s, McDowell, to me, wins. If it's played more than that, then it's probably State College, and it might still even be State College in the 20s and 30s. It's just more likely McDowell has a shot. So that's a huge game Friday night. So you've got 3A Friday and 6A Friday. You've got 2A Saturday. And I want to end this, Rob, with, no disrespect to the Class 1A. Cambridge Springs, big win against Cochranton. That was a fun game that the Spa was able to win. Quickly, let's hit on 1A with Cambridge Springs specifically. Greenville, Reynolds, and Mercer County game. A little bit of a fun one. Wilmington's going to be the favorite, but I love Nate Liberty. He's one of my favorite coaches in District 10. The Spa's got an interesting opportunity here against Wilmington on Saturday to potentially do some damage and pull an upset. And they've been sneaky in 1A for the last 5-6 years.
They do. And I agree with you. Nathan Liberty, he's one of the better coaches in District 10. Without a doubt.
He's a top 5 coach in District 10 in my book.
He really is. He really is. And he comes from that cash system, and he does a lot of things to stress out a defense. And then their backs in Hoover and am I saying it right, Kenya?
Yeah.
They've between the two of them, they're like 2,600 yards rushing, 30 touchdowns. Everything goes through them. Here's where it gets, again, another David versus Goliath matchup. When you look at Wilmington and who they've played, their losses have been to Hubbard, Ohio, to Farrell, and to Karn City, who's back. Karn City is like back and on top again.
Yeah.
And then you look at Cambridge Springs, their losses are to Reynolds. They were pounded by Greenville. And then they lost to a very good Fairport Harbor Harding team by 6 points. But they're another one, the ground game has to really be intact, but Wilmington, Wilmington is, double wing T team. They're another one that's just built for the playoffs.
Yeah, but a shout out nonetheless to Coach Liberty and Cambridge
Absolutely.
Springs. They have been, if the Fort LaBeouf equivalent of 3A is the Erie County powerhouse, they have been the Erie Crawford County powerhouse in 1A, because they have been just a standard bearer for Crawford County teams. And again, shout out to Coach Liberty there. They will certainly be back. Kania has been one of the best. I actually got a chance to talk to his mom a few days ago. She works at the dentist office that I'm at, and she's like, it's been a season to remember, just like the others, because we're back where we feel like we belong in the District 10 semifinals. So shout out to Cambridge Springs. We'll see if they can spring the win on Saturday against that of Wilmington. That game at Grove City High School at 7:00. Let's finish with Oil City, Rob. We've done enough reacting to this game, and I think the shock factor is certainly still there. But now if you're Dan York and the Oilers, you get a week off, which is, again, kind of unexpected, given that they thought this weekend they would be playing General McLean if they were to beat Meadville, and we saw how the opt-out ended, and evidently that game gets scheduled for a week earlier, and so here they are. I wanted to just talk quickly for a minute, Rob, about how far you think this Oiler team can go. They're going to have a tough opponent no matter what, and I think you look at the way that the bracket shakes out. They're going to get a home game, but it's not going to be an easy test. Is this a team, based on their defense, based on the way they run the football, and Cole Finley, are they built to win a state playoff game? And if so, what does that look like for the Oilers when they get ready to play next week?
Well, they're going to have a tough opponent, regardless if it's Clearfield or if it's Punxsy.
Yeah.
Clearfield's another, you saw them. I mean, they are a ground and pound, nasty, physical team. And everybody's saying right now, Punxsy is the best, but we'll see what happens and who their matchup is. Yeah, I mean, nobody gave them a shot against McLean, and they do what they need to do. And come playoff time, they're built for it. I think back to, was it 3 years ago? Nobody gave them a shot against Northeast, because Northeast had beat them during the regular season when Ethan Knox didn't play, and then they just absolutely pounded Northeast back then. I think when they were in 3A, but no, they're built for the playoffs. And Coach York having 2 weeks, just to rest up, and I'm sure he's looking at both opponents, but they're going to scout this next game, really hard. They have a chance, but they have a chance for another week, I'm going to say, because after that, we know what lies there, and that's the Whippeal team.
Yeah, the Whippeal's been crazy. You just had a big win, Newcastle beating Montour, which I think was a bit of a shock to a lot of people. Aliquippa, Thomas Jefferson, that could be a state championship game even of itself. In the Whippeal, 4A is just unbelievably loaded. I don't know how the heck that ends up happening, but that's the classification you look at and you're like, oh my gosh, that's murderer's row. You win the Whippeal, you might have a chance to make the state championship game. But again, I want to just end by going back on what I said on Friday and reiterating that I think this Oil City team is a lot better than what people gave him credit for. And again, GM turned the ball over 4 times. Like, you can't win the game if you turn the ball over like that. But a lot of it was because of the Oil City pressure and the defense they were able to play. And it really, for me, Rob, and this is, I think, something that maybe this is a terminology that we need to associate with Oil City now. They make you uncomfortable. And in the game Saturday, General McLean just felt like an uncomfortable football team, a team that was used to playing a certain way and just for some reason didn't feel like they could, or they just couldn't because of the way Oil City played them. And for this Oiler team, you make teams feel uncomfortable. You never know. Punxsy's going to be a tough out if it's not Punxsy Clearfield, but they play their game. Again, they've got the defensive blueprint, and for me, the running game, and the quarterback, Cole Finley, too. The Oil City teams in the past, even with Ethan Knox, they haven't had the quarterback. Now they have the quarterback and Cole Finley to potentially surprise more teams.
And, Coach York has shown he's going to have, he had that extra week. He was able to really put the blueprint down about McLean. He's shown they can win in tight games. Their only loss was McLean in the regular season, and that was early. They had no business, like at all. And Braden alluded to it when we talked last week. That Erie team was by far so much more talented, had so much more speed, but they found a way and they did what they did. And at the right moments and at the right time, they surprised them. And it was a night that Erie should have used their speed and could have won. But they found a way to win. And just like they found a way to beat Meadville, which is a huge rivalry game. And then they found a way to win last week too. So I don't ever discount or count out a Dan York team at all. We say it again. Ethan Knox and Blake Reddick, I believe, the top two leading rushers all time in District 10, coached by Dan York. So he's built for this type of game and this weather.
All right, Rob. So those are the games this weekend, a couple that we didn't get to. Which one ends up being the most exciting, or the one you think on Saturday evening that we talk about the most?
Oh, it's tough. I'm gonna have to probably. I'm gonna go with LaBeouf and Hickory. I think that's going to be the game. I'm going to be down there. I'm actually doing that game at Slippery Rock Friday and then heading to Titusville on Saturday for the Merciers game. But it wouldn't shock me talking about Northeast either. Yeah, I think it's going to come out of the 3A.
I agree. I think that we could be, at least Erie County people could be making a little bit of noise when it comes to those games. And maybe we're wrong. I mean, Hickory and Sharon are still juggernauts, but Fort LaBeouf and Northeast are playing their best football at the best time. And at some point, something has got to give, right? And maybe this is the year. And I think you got two really fundamentally sound and teams that are willing to go the extra mile to win football games. I'm actually going to say I think McDowell State College is the game that we're talking the most about. I think because of their schedule, because of the fact that I think early in the season, with the Kuhn injury, they didn't really know who they were. This McDowell team struggled, but you started to see throughout the season that they went back to basics, right? Coach Orlando coming back, being the OC. He said, look, anytime that I've had success when I was a head coach here, we were a downhill running team that got the offensive line to just block people out in oblivion, and we would run the quarterback and run the running back, and it would be great. And that's what they started to do. I think Brody Bonsell can be a difference maker in the game. And there's something about, I think, the way that they've been playing as of late leads me to believe that they can at least make this really, really competitive against State College. I think that'll be a game we'll talk a lot about. I agree with you, the 3A. And then who knows from there? I think there's going to be a lot of excitement too when we get into the end of the week about getting ready for Oil City next week too, because I think we're going to start to realize that they're a better team than maybe we gave them credit for. So we'll see. Rob, it's going to be a fun weekend. You got a couple games to call, so I appreciate you coming on tonight, man. And we'll try to do this on Saturday evening so we can wrap up all the games. But another fun weekend. Hopefully we see as much drama this weekend as we did last.
Hopefully, and we'll probably be doing it from Titusville. From hopefully, I don't know what their press box is like. I just hope I have a warm, dry place because I'm not an outdoor weather guy, anymore in this climate. I've done enough of that, so I like to be in the press box this time of year. I don't want to be wet in the rain or anything like that, or the wind.
I'll tell you what, man, I know that I'm still what they would consider in my young years, but I was out filming soccer tonight. Within 15 minutes, I'm freezing my butt off and I'm up to the press box getting warm. So you're not alone in that battle, my friend.
Yeah, but I am looking forward to some really good games, and I'm really looking forward, to going down to Titusville, just because, like you said, it's just such a cool stadium. It's a cool place. So much history's there, and I can't wait. And I'm looking forward to. I haven't seen Hickory live in person this year, and I haven't seen Farrell live in person either. So looking forward to that a lot.
It's going to be fun. Rob, buddy, enjoy it. We'll talk to you again on Saturday, more rapid reaction, and see if we're talking more craziness as we've done all season.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too, Rob. It's been Rob Batts. He is the best in breaking down all these games, getting you set for the games. Going to be another fun weekend, another exciting weekend, because we don't know what's going to happen. And that's the greatest part about this season in high school football is there's been some predictability, but not much when it comes to the games that we have covered. All right, we are back tomorrow on the network. We've got Off the Record happening, another episode with Trevor Kubea and the guest of the week with Off the Record, as a podcast that we, of course, have been loving to have on our network. It is the official podcast of the Erie Otters. Then high school football rapid reaction comes to you Saturday night. We're going to do it like we did last weekend, where after all the games are done, Friday and Saturday, we'll recap them all. We'll break down what we thought was the best, the toughest game of the weekend, and go and have a nice, fun reaction party before we get set for another week of football playoffs with some district championship games and state playoff games in the wings in the next week or so. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 7 for Off the Record. Until then, stay safe, stay warm. Hope your power stays on with all the rain and the wind. And we'll see you all tomorrow for Off the Record.